Good afternoon, dear students. Welcome to the Institute for Open Learning. For those aspiring ideal teachers pursuing an advanced certificate in secondary education, a diploma in education secondary, diploma in education, and diploma in secondary education. I am your tutor, Mr. Smanza, for this subject, Business Studies, Didactics, and Learners Support. I can be reached at the cell phone number provided 081 440 339. Let's look at the content of our class for today. Our class for today will be examination based. The content will therefore cover the important topics for the examination preparation for May, August, and November. The class will serve as an examination guide in terms of preparation and writing. Students are advised to take note that this class is not for the purpose of scope, but it is an examination guide. Let's look at the following topic of discussion for today. We are going to look at the importance of studying business studies as a subject. Why did you choose to do business studies as a subject? We are also going to look at the important terminologies that one needs to understand as a teacher. We are also going to look at the aspect of the qualities of an ideal teacher, the requirements. What is it that is expected in a quality teacher? We are also going to look at the challenges that students face in doing this subject, the methods of teaching that you aspiring teachers are going to use in the process of delivering services. We are also going to look at the aspect of learning culture, the class participation, leadership, and management. The aspect of the purpose of asking questions, conflict, and any other important topics. Now, when one takes a decision to choose or decide to study this subject, one must have a good understanding of what he's going through or what he's going to achieve at the end. Now, what are those benefits that we are talking about for studying this subject? Learners gain an understanding of the meaning and the role of stakeholders in the business activities. Studying this subject is also good in order to have a good understanding of the business activities, including the involution of such business activities. It also helps to select careers in life. It also helps to identify and understand the business strategies. It also helps for those aspiring to be entrepreneurs to start up their own businesses. It helps the shareholders and stakeholders to have an understanding in the financial management aspect of running a business, and also to understand the challenges involved in running an organization or a business. That is in short about the benefits of studying this subject. As an aspiring teacher, one needs first to understand the meanings of the terms used in business. This is for you to have a good understanding and also to enable you to transfer the knowledge and your understanding effectively and efficiently to your receivers, who are referred as to your students or learners. A few of examples are provided that includes the needs and wants. Needs, which are referred as to what one cannot live without, whereas want is referred as to something that one can live without. For example, you may live without a car, a watch, a chain, or a ring. Look at the aspect of specialization, brand mark, leadership and management aspect, shareholders, stakeholders, costs, responsibilities, a few to mention. Read all the business terminologies and understand. Let's look at what is required in an ideal teacher and the challenges that students or learners get in this subject. For those aspiring to be teachers, not just a teacher, but ideal teacher or educator, we are looking at the expected qualities, such as one needs to have the excellent communication skills. You must have a sense of humor, patience, self-confident. You must be open-minded, and one needs to be diversified, need and understand more areas in order for you to provide more knowledge to students. You must be a role model. You must be hygiene. Show an example. When you are telling students that they must be neat, they must be clean, you must be a picture of what you are saying. Walk the talking. What are the difficulties that new secondary students or learners experience in business studies? There are few identified challenges that includes the difficulty in understanding the subject for the first time. There is a challenge of lack of background knowledge and familiarity with the language. Lack of understanding of the relevancy of the subject. Students find difficult in interpreting questions and constructing answers to a problem or questions. This is very important. Disability is one of the challenges that are faced in this aspect. The visual impaired, those that cannot talk, those that cannot hear, those that cannot walk, those that don't have hands to write, are some of the challenges in relation to disability aspect. There is also a challenge of lack of access to resources. When you are telling students or give assignments to go and read newspaper, ask them questions related to things that are being shown on TV, you will find that such other students does not have access or money to buy newspapers. They do not have access to television as their parents cannot afford such, in simple terms. Now, you as an aspiring teacher, you as a teacher, what is it that you can contribute in order to overcome such challenges in relation to business studies students? You must emphasize, you must advise students to read and work more with economic data that is provided. Encourage them to read newspaper articles, radios, and TV, to read magazines, books, in order to connect to the world, even though such is a challenge. But please encourage for them to do such. Provide more practical questions and models to the students. Provide the necessary resources as needed. For example, give learners enlarged copies of relevant diagrams, graphs, and charts. Even though we may have a challenge of finance, but if addressed, please do so. Use the easy language, simple, in order for the learners to understand. If you use a difficult term, please explain it in simple terms for them to understand. You must understand the level of understanding between your understanding and that of your receivers. Now, what are the methods that teachers use? We have the direct method approach of teaching. We have the learner-centered approach of teaching, whereas the direct method is referred as to the traditional way of providing information to teacher, providing information to learners from teachers, whereas the learner-centered approach therefore refers as to the teachers and learners reflecting together in the learning process, where responsibilities is shared between two such parties. Look at the characteristics of the learner-centered approach, which includes learners act as teachers, where a teacher will sit as a learner, and a learner will therefore stand in front to teach like as if he is a teacher, in simple terms. Learners should be in groupings for them to share knowledge, to interact, and to understand each other. It is also working together in pairs for educators to move around to facilitate. Educators guides learners in self-assessment. Those are a few of the characteristics or the aspects that one may get to differentiate the learner-centered approach to the traditional way of teaching. Let's look at the culture of learning. What are the characteristics? What are the common features of learning? It includes the inquiry aspect, which is the research and learning aspect, the sharing, which is learning and regularly shared in order to help the community to grow. A teacher is expected to share the knowledge with the community. The collaboration aspect, where all members learn from each other. Communication is very important in protocol and structure support sharing. The leadership aspect in learning, where leaders share their learning publicly and acknowledge their questions and errors in community. The goal aspect, where learning community or environment sets goals, assess progress, and revise as necessary. Team. A sense of team is embraced and that the learning goals are shared with all the group members. Those are the features of a learning organization, of a learning environment in any workplace, in any learning environment, so to say. Let's look at the types of questions and the purpose of asking questions in class. The purpose of asking questions will therefore, for the reason that you as a teacher tries to encourage participation from your students. You ask questions in order to evaluate the learner and the level of understanding of such a learner. A question is asked to motivate and to encourage a learner or a student to participate in the process. It is also for the purpose of reviewing the past lessons in order for you to understand whether students have understood what you have taught before you proceed to the next lesson. In brief about the purpose of asking questions. Now, what are those questions that needs to be asked in a business studies class? The type of questions therefore include the questions that are knowledge content, where data and information is recalled. The comprehension aspect of question, which is there to understand the meaning of what is asked. The application aspect, where the use of concept in the new situation must make a meaning. The analysis, to separate concept in two parts, distinguish between facts and inferences. Questions should include the synthesis, which is to combine parts to form a new meaning. Questions must be also of the nature to evaluate, which is to make judgments about the value of the ideas and or products. Let's look at the class participation as an aspect or a reason of one of the reasons of asking questions. Class participation is simply means promotive and active participation of learners in class. How do you do such? You can only promote or encourage such in class when you tell learners to engage each other. The expectation from the teacher to students must be clear from the beginning of the year. What is expected from the students and what the teacher expects from them must be made clear to learners. The teacher must learn and use learners' names. For example, when you are asking questions, call a name of the students. Robbie, what is your understanding? Austin, give me an answer. It motivates students and gives them a sense that the teacher indeed knows them. Use a variety of teaching methods that includes lecturing, discussion, and small groups as part of the futures of a learning environment. Make sure your presentation techniques involve several types of resources. Use the learning activities that promotes active learner involvement. Avoid interpretation. When a student or a learner is talking, you cut the person short or you interrupt and bring something else. Please avoid interruption. Respect their ideas and responses, because by doing so, they are contributing and giving their understanding or view of the topic of discussion. As an ideal teacher, one is expected to understand the forms of ownership that one finds within the economy, and such includes the sole trader, partnership, close cooperation, public limited, private, franchise, joint ventures, a few to mention. You are advised to also read more and understand the meaning of such, to understand the characteristics, to understand the advantages and disadvantages of such forms of ownership. It is also advised for all stakeholders in the business activity to understand the aspect of management or managing the business, and also to understand the reasons why managers or organizations fail because of managers. Read and understand. For example, few reasons that may be given why managers fail is that they are too independent. They do not have the ability to interact or to consult. They have poor interpersonal skills. As we have explained or discussed earlier, that communication is one of the ideal requirements for a manager or an ideal teacher. Managers fail to adapt, whereas they lack the flexibility skills in order for them to fit or adapt to any situation that they may find themselves. They have the me-only syndrome. very important. Fear of action and the inability to rebuild. A manager or an ideal manager is that will fall and will stand up, that will learn from the mistake and rectify for the better. Now, within the business activities, as long as there is an interaction between people, between employees and the management, there will always be a conflict. Such a conflict is therefore expected to be resolved by the management. And it's only those managers with the qualities of a good manager can afford to manage or resolve conflict within the business. Now, what is it that causes such conflict in the business activities or at work, so to say? Difference in values. When people have opposing interests, there is also an aspect of personality conflict, poor communication, personal problems at home or in your life, and lack of resources at work. A few to mention, but read and understand what it means when we say lack of resources, when we say poor communication. A few to mention. Now, there are steps that needs to be followed in order for managers to resolve conflict at a workplace. The first step that one needs to take is first to understand and identify the source of conflict. Is it because we don't have enough resources? Is it because there is a communication problem? Is it because of different cultures? Please identify and understand the cause. Discuss the solutions or generate the solutions that are needed to address such conflict. Develop the advantages and disadvantages list of each identified solutions. Identify mutual agreeable solution. You have to agree with other stakeholders, with the employees, on which is the better approach to resolve such conflict, as the case may be. Please pick from the list of the mutual agreeable solutions a solution that meets the needs of all parties involved. Consider the employee's interest. Consider the management aspect or the parties, as the case may be. Develop a plan of action for such a chosen solution. Now, you must also look at other important aspects that we may not explain in detail for now, but look at the features of a good business studies lesson. And also look at the advertising. Read and understand the meaning of advertising as a business terminology. Look at the purpose of advertising and the methods used in advertising, the types and the ethical principles in advertising. Look at the market research aspect. Look at the surface and deep learning. Understand the differences and the similarities between two such aspects. Look at the steps in teaching the verbs, and also read the aspect of budget. What is the meaning? What is the purpose of budgeting? What are the benefits that are associated to budgeting that can either be on an individual level or in the business relation? Look at the aspect of recruitment. A few to mention. These are other important topics that you may cover for the sake of examination and preparation in this aspect. I have identified challenges in answering questions in assignments and other past examinations. For example, a question of a lesson plan. Most students gets difficult in answering such. Please understand that when I ask you to develop a lesson plan on a certain topic, I am therefore requiring you or expecting you to give me straight the content of such aspect that I have asked. For example, if I ask you to develop a lesson plan of the topic of a sole trader, explain the meaning of a sole trader. Explain the advantages and disadvantages of such ownership. All I am asking you is to discuss the topic in detail. There is also a problem in relation to discussion questions. For example, if I ask a question of why do managers fail, I am expecting you to answer me in point forms and explain. For example, when you say poor interpersonal skills, explain what it means. Lack of confidence as a point and explain what it means. You'll find that I'll give you a mark for the mentioning point of lack of confidence and a mark for explanation. But if you just state lack of confidence or say poor interpersonal skills, the question is discuss. Give me a point and explain. This is for you not to lose marks. Let's look at the last part of our class, which is the examination preparation and right guiding. The preparation aspect, therefore, you are advised when preparing or studying that whenever you start, you must first pray. This is a social advice. You are also, or you must take note that all questions in the examination are from the content of the study guide provided by our institution. But this does not mean that you must only stick to your study guide, but consult other sources. Go to the library, read other books, go on internet, and research more information. Make sure you understand the outcome at the end of each unit, because the outcomes are a summary of a unit. and test your understanding of what you have read. Please make sure you get more information in relation to the venue and the time in advance before the date and the time of writing. Do not forget to carry enough and necessary required materials. That may include things such as pens, watch, ruler, student card, and any other material that may be required in that regard. What is it that we are expected or required during the examination? Again, the aspect of prayer repeats on a social basis. Pray before you start writing. Please make sure you read the questions carefully and the instructions in order to avoid disqualification or loss of marks. You are also advised that students are not allowed to take any form of note in the examination. This is to avoid disqualification. Please consider when answering questions. Consider the marks allocated at the end of each question. And this is to guide you on the required content in order to avoid losing marks. Make sure you understand the meaning of the verbs used in the question. For example, when you are told to discuss, please do not state or list, but point out the positive and the negative features in that respect and arrive at the conclusion. Summarize what you have discussed. When you are asked to briefly outline, understand the meaning of brief. Explain in short. Do not discuss. When a question is asked to differentiate between the types of leadership, differentiate the two terminologies, please point out the differences only. When you are told to list, just state. Do not discuss. Give the names or facts as required. When you are asked to compare, look at the similarities and the differences between such required terms. Please read the verbs in your study guides and understand for you not to lose marks. My dear students, this brings us to the end of our presentation or class for today, and I wish you good luck.